Hello everyone. Thank you all for watching the video. Wishing you all good health and peace. The dawn crept over the mountains, its light a fragile whisper, threading through mist that draped the hills like a veil over unspoken dreams. Lytuca stirred, her breath soft in the winter's chill, as roosters crowed, their calls slicing the hush of a world yet to wake. She stepped onto the packed dirt of their bamboo house, its walls weathered by rain and time, and knelt by the hearth, her hands roughened by years of toil, coaxing flames from ash. The fire flickered, casting shadows like memories she held at bay, and a pot of rice porridge simmered, its steam a quiet vow for her daughter Han, who slept still, her small form curled under a quilt, her breath a gentle rhythm. Beyond the yard the mountain loomed, its slopes hiding her grandmother's potato patch, and Lytuca's heart trembled, as if the day carried truths it might unveil. Their home clung to a slope, a humble shelter of bamboo and thatch, cradled by the mountain's embrace. The yard was a patchwork of life, a vegetable patch where greens curled toward the sun, a chicken coop alive with soft clucks, a small grove where grapefruit gleamed in the dawn. Each morning Lytuca tended the land, her hands steady as she sowed seeds or fed Han, her tiny hands eager for the day's warmth. Today, Han was with her grandmother, her giggles a distant echo in the village below, and Lytuca set out for the mountain, her basket slung over her shoulder, her steps sure despite the wind's bite. Asin, her husband, was gone, his motorbike's hum fading toward the wood factories, where he worked from dawn, sorting boards across 10 workshops, perhaps more if his boss called. The hope of his wages had once warmed her, but now a shadow lingered. His late returns, his silence, whispers of another woman. Her heart wavered, torn between love and a fear she couldn't name, as if the mountain held secrets it wouldn't share. The trail was steep, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth, the wind carrying tiny raindrops that stung her cheeks. Lytuca climbed, her breath sharp, the mountain rising thousands of meters, its peak a challenge she met with her own 2 feet. After 5 kilometers the potato patch emerged, its rows etched into the slope, the tubers hidden beneath frost-kissed soil. She knelt, her hands brushing dirt, uncovering a tuber, its skin rough but heavy. "So big," she murmured, her voice soft, a smile flickering as she held it, its weight a small triumph. The wind howled, tugging at her scarf, but she worked steadily, filling the basket, each tuber a promise of coins at market. Her thoughts drifted to Asin, to his work, his promises, the life they were building. The patch was her grandmother's, a legacy of labor, but his distance pressed, heavy as the rain that clung to her skin. The sun climbed, its warmth a faint pulse through the clouds, casting pale threads across the patch. Lytuca paused, her hands resting on the basket, her eyes tracing the valley below, where the stream glinted like a silver thread. She thought of Han, her laughter a spark that lit the dimmest days, and of Asin, his hand steady at the factories. 10 workshops today, 5 more if the boss called, boards sorted, wages earned. But the neighbors' whispers lingered. A woman seen with him, her laughter shared in ways that cut. She pushed the thought away, her hands tightening on the basket, her steps quickening down the trail, the tubers heavy against her back, each one a vow of sustenance. Back at the house, Lytuca sorted the potatoes, her hands deft, her thoughts a tangle of hope and dread. Han returned, her grandmother's hand guiding her, her small feet kicking dust, her chatter a melody that softened the air. "Mama, potatoes!" she called, her eyes bright, her hands reaching for a tuber. Lytuca knelt, her smile warm, her fingers slicing one for porridge, its starch sharp against the steam. "For you," she said, offering a spoonful, Han's giggle a spark as she ate, crumbs dusting her chin. The warmth of the porridge spread in Lytuca's chest, a surprise that felt like grace, and she laughed, the sound rare and bright, a moment of joy amid the labor. Her grandmother nodded, her eyes kind, her voice low. "She's your strength." Lytuca's throat tightened, her hand brushing Han's hair, her heart catching at the thought of her daughter's future, of the life they were building, of Asin's role in it. The morning deepened and Lytuca moved to the yard, her hands scattering grain for the chickens, their soft forms darting in the dust. Han trailed her, her small hands tossing grain in clumsy arcs, her chatter a spark that lit the air. Lytuca watched, her smile softening, but her eyes carried shadows, memories of lean years, of Han's cries unanswered, of nights when the mountain felt too vast. She thought of Asin, his motorbike racing between factories, his work a lifeline now frayed by silence. She'd waited for him, her hands hovering by the hearth, but his absence stretched days without word. A void filled by whispers of a woman whose name she didn't know. Her heart ached, a wound she couldn't name. As she gathered the potatoes, their weight a reminder of what she could control. The day waned, the clouds thickening, casting a chill over the hills. Lytuca walked to a small roadside stall, her basket heavy with potatoes, the trail slick with mud, the wind pressing against her skin. The stall hummed, voices low, the air thick with the scent of mint and smoke. She sat, her legs aching, and Hung appeared, his eyes kind, his voice warm. "Tuca," he said, his hands carrying 2 glasses of mint water, their chill a surprise in the cold. "You look tired." She smiled, her fingers brushing the glass, the tartness sharp on her tongue. "Just the mountain," she said, but her eyes betrayed her, heavy with the weight of days. Hung sat, his presence steady, his words gentle. "I'm heading to the factories," he said, his voice low. 10 workshops today, maybe more. Can I borrow your car?" She nodded, her heart easing, but a shadow lingered. His kindness, his ease, a spark that both warmed and unsettled her. They talked, the mint water cool in their hands, the stalls hum a bomb. Hung spoke of his work, mechanical workshops, wood factories, a boss who pushed him across the valley. "Still have money to spend," he said, his smile light, and she laughed, the sound rare, her own coins from the market enough for the month. But the conversation turned, his eyes softening. "Asin's been gone a lot," he said, his voice careful. "You're strong, Tuca. Han needs you." Lytuca's smile faltered, her hands pausing, her heart a fist in her chest. She nodded, her voice steady, but the truth burned. Days without a sin, whispers of a woman, a life unraveling. "I don't know where he is," she said, her eyes distant, the glass cold in her palm. Hung's hand paused, his voice a lifeline. "If you need help, I'm here." The stall faded, and Hung drove her home, her car a steady hum on the winding trail, the mountain's shadow lengthening. She sat, the seatbelt unfamiliar, the road curving through hills, the stream glinting in the dusk. Hung's presence was a shield, his words a bridge, stories of factories, plans to stay in the valley, a vow to build something new. Lytuca listened, her heart easing, but the weight of Asin's absence lingered, a shadow that grew with the fading light. "Han's only 2, she said, her voice breaking. "I waited for him. Now this." Hung's hand paused on the wheel, his eyes kind. "You'll find a way," he said, but the words felt fragile, a vow tested by whispers she couldn't unhear. They stopped near the village, the bamboo house glowing, its hearth a beacon. But a motorbike's hum cut through, and Asin appeared, his face tense, his eyes fierce. "Tuca," he called, his voice sharp, his hands gripping the handlebars. "With him again?" Lytuca froze, her basket slipping, her heart a storm. Hung stepped out, his voice calm. "Just driving her home," he said, but Asin's jaw tightened, his words a blade. "My wife," he said, his eyes burning. "Your trouble, Hung. I heard about you with her while I'm working." Lytuca's breath caught, her hands trembling, her voice low. "Your work," she said, her eyes fierce. "And that woman? 2 years Asin. I waited." The air crackled, their words a wound, and Hung stepped between, his voice steady. "Enough," he said, his hand on Lytuca's arm. "She's tired. I'm leaving." Asin's face crumpled, his voice breaking. "Tuca, I'm your husband," he said, but she turned, her eyes burning with tears she wouldn't shed. "Not like this," she said, her voice steady, her hands shaking. "Go. Me and Han don't need your doubts." Hung guided her to the house, his presence a shield, and Asin stood, his motorbike idling, his words lost in the night's hush. The door closed, the hearth glowing, and Lytuca fed Han, her small hands eager, her chatter a spark in the quiet. Her grandmother watched, her eyes kind but heavy, her voice low. "Men falter," she said, her hands slicing greens, their scent sharp on the air. "I raised your mother alone. You're stronger than this." Lytuca nodded, her fingers tracing the bowl's rim, the clay cool against her skin. She thought of Asin, his hands steady at the factories, 10 workshops, 5 more if called, boards sorted, wages earned. She thought of the woman, her laughter a blade she hadn't seen, and of Hung, his kindness a light that both warmed and troubled her, a choice she hadn't sought. She thought of Han, her laughter a spark that both anchored and unraveled her, a dream both fierce and frail. They ate, rice and greens warmed by the hearth, Han nestled between her and her grandmother, her giggles a spark in the quiet. Lytuca's thoughts turned inward, a tangle of love and pain. She thought of the factories where a sin worked, his absence a void that echoed in the village's whispers. She thought of their years together, the nights when hunger was a shadow, the days when Han's birth was a joy unmarred by the world's judgment. The evening deepened, the fire's glow casting shadows across the room, the bamboo walls softening in the light. Lytuca cleared the bowls, her hands steady, the clink of clay a rhythm in the quiet. Han slept, her breath soft, her small form curled on a mat, her laughter a memory that lingered. Her grandmother hummed, her hands folding a quilt, her presence a steady anchor. Lytuca stepped outside, the air cool, the stars sharp against the dark, their light a map of questions without answers. The mountain loomed, its silence vast, the valley hidden beyond its folds, the stream's murmur a faint lullaby. She gazed down the path the sin had ridden, the dust untouched, her heart a fragile bridge between love and betrayal. She lingered, the scent of earth and potatoes wrapping her, the night's chill brushing her skin like a memory. She thought of the patch, its tubers a seed of their future, the chickens growing strong, the coins from the market a vow of resilience. She thought of their dreams, small but stubborn, like roots breaking stone, and of a sin, his hands steady, his heart hers, yet touched by a shadow she couldn't forgive. She thought of Hung, his car a fleeting refuge, his words a spark that stirred both hope and fear, a trouble she hadn't sought. She thought of Han, her daughter's future a dream both fierce and frail, and of herself, a woman who'd carried love through years of want, now standing on the edge of a truth that burned. The stars held no answers, only light, and Lytuca let the stillness hold her, a breath before dawn's demands. Tomorrow she'd rise, tend the patch, feed Han, walk to market, her steps sure despite the weight. Han would laugh, chasing chicks or clutching tubers, her voice a melody that softened the yard's edges. A sin might return, his hands empty, his eyes heavy with truths she couldn't hear. Hung might pass again, his kindness a question she couldn't answer. The coins from the market would carry them, a path to a future unwritten, a chance to outrun the shadow of betrayal. The patch would yield, its tubers a vow of resilience, and Han's laughter would light the dimmest days. But in her soul a question lingered, delicate as moonlight. Would Hung's aid unravel her family, or would she find a way to mend the path ahead, raising Han under the mountain's gaze? Somewhere in the valley's hush, their future waited, and here on the mountain, her family breathed, a fragile circle of love and pain, its edges softened by a sky too vast to promise forever.